Just before we start, how many of you guys are doing international business already? All right, a few. And how many people have heard of RS components before? Oh yes, that's 100% more than last time, or infinitely more than last time. So I'll do a little bit of introduction about RS and how we've got to where we've got to, and the international business that we're doing. Feel free to ask questions throughout, but the objective is I'll share a bit about RS and then how we've used the model to expand internationally. Um, So, not surprisingly, we're probably the biggest business no one's ever heard of. So, the last person to um, the last session, there was no one that put their hand up. So, it's a welcome to my world. But we're probably the biggest companies no one's ever heard of. We're about 113th in the FTSE 250. We're growing incredibly well. We do about 1.7 billion pound of business a year, but we do about 5.5 million pounds of sales online every single day. And we start every day with no order on the book. So it's very much like retail, but we're selling to businesses. So imagine like an Argos or an Amazon, but instead of selling to consumers, we're selling to businesses. So we buy about 550,000 products. We put them in warehouses around the world. And then we have effectively website, mobile and apps that sell to customers. And they pleasantly decide to place about £5.5 million worth of business with us every day around the world, which is quite nice. We were started in 1937 by two Polish guys actually, based out of a car boot in London. Until about 1990, 70% of our business was based in the UK. And in more recent times this year, 75% of our business will be outside of the UK. So we've gone through that transformation where we looked at ourselves to say, do we want to be be a UK business with international operations, or do we want to be an international business? So I think it's a good case study of how a UK business with really long heritage can go on and internationalize their business. So kind of what we do, just a whistle-stop store, we have 2,500 different suppliers, and we have 550,000 different products, and we're serving business customers all around the world. So it can be the likes of Coca-Cola and Dyson, and Formula One or McLaren even doing great engineering, or it can be a maintenance guy in the Dyson factory buying little components of us to keep his maintenance line running. But effectively we're just retailing business products to engineers. And although I said we obviously started in 1937 as a offline distributor. Until about 1990s we were very much an offline distributor and a UK-based business. And what's quite nice is we've digitized the business. So we see ourselves as a digital business and an international business from a traditionally UK business and an offline business. I guess some of you guys, if you're in multi-channel businesses, have a similar challenge. We've got some of the people who were still there from 1937 and think in a very offline, old-fashioned way. So we're quite pleased that we've digitized the business, and along with digitization, it's allowed us to internationalize very fast and with a lot of scale. So if I go on to internationalization, kind of we've basically done a huge amount of research with different customers around the world, whether it be Chinese customers and Japanese customers, or whether it be UK customers and more European customers. And we find one thing's very consistent across all of the customer set, and that is whether it's engineers or whether it's buyers or whether it's maintenance engineers, they're saying to us very consistently that there are some macro needs that they all need from a business, whether it's a UK business or whether it's a local business, and that is they're very time poor. They want great customer experiences, and they all use search engines, whether it be Baidu in China or whether it be Google or Yahoo. There's some things that form a macro customer need that doesn't change in our customer personas across the world. So that's highly relevant for later on. So what we obviously started with a base from is we have a digital team based in the UK, which is about 170 people, and they run digital operations for the globe. So we've managed to scale where we have a digital base that runs, and a skeleton, if you like, that runs across the whole world, across 32 different markets. We run a huge digital advertising or pay-per-click model across the globe, and we generate somewhere between 3 and 5 million, depending on the day and the volatility of the day, sales per day across our digital channels, and that means we ship a parcel every 2 seconds across the world. And I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that what we did a huge amount of customer research, and we've tried lots of different things, from being a very local business to expand internationally, which is high cost. And we also tried the other way, which was to have a strong digital model that is very universal and vanilla across the globe. And what we've managed to do is we've built a base, because we've found that the core customer needs across the globe when you go international are very common. And speaking to colleagues in the retail business who have done a similar thing, I think there's a universal kind of macro need around customers across all international markets that we found the most efficient and effective way, and none so probably more from a talent perspective. It's much easier to get that running from a common base wherever it may be, whether it's the States or the UK or Europe. It's much easier and much more efficient to get it going faster from a common base, to get that platform that the whole globe sits on, before you start thinking about localization. And this is just some of the stuff that we work with Google on, that we've managed to drive a real shift. So we were in the bottom left in that cluster of companies, and as we've built an international model based on a skeleton, we've managed to have a central operation in the UK that serves the whole globe, that's really accelerated our performance, where we're investing a lot, but we're also getting a much higher share of clicks across all of our global markets. And this is just kind of to emphasize that we've got this central model that runs across all of the globe. And we've kind of really adopted agile in those central teams, where we've built teams in London, we've built a couple offshore in the Baltics, and a few in Corby, where we can get lower cost of resource for more operational tasks. But effectively, it's a global team that's based across Europe, London, and Corby, that do all of the digital operations for the whole globe, so it allows us to scale effectively. And then this just kind of give you a flavour of how we've scaled centrally. Is although we're talking about a digital operations base that scales internationally across the globe, we've managed to, one of the big decisions we had to make was to move our operations from the Midlands into London, to allow us to get multiple languages and multiple skill sets. And the main way that we've scaled this central digital advertising and digital marketing and customer experience capability is to move our offices to London and get talent that's multilingual, but all based around a centre of excellence. And that's how we've serviced the whole globe. And I guess no surprise to you guys that we get a lot of benefit from doing that, from understanding all the marketing technologies at play, and the pace that the market's moving at. So obviously, I guess you're quite familiar with the marketing technology landscape that sits on the left, and on the right hand side, the amount of customer interaction and the development that's going on around social media and digital advertising is exceptionally fast. So I don't know if you guys have it, but we have a lot of tension within our business about whether we should be going local, and we have local businesses that are pulling for digital and digital operations to be based locally, and we have a lot of obviously views in the centre. But the main driver and thrust of having our digital operations centrally is one around capability and being able to build top class capability in London around a hub of digital talent that sits there. And the second reason has been the market is moving so fast, it's very difficult for us to develop technology platforms and serve the ever-changing customer need across different markets, across 32 markets, to be able to keep up with the technology change and the customer demands. We tried, and we've just realised that that's not the way to go. The way to go is to have more of a centralised model for the whole globe, where we build a local feel by employing local language, local specialist people, but base it out of a international hub like London. But what we have done is realise that actually there are some markets where we need to go much more local. So I would say that the model that we've got to in terms of equilibrium is, rather than go fully local or fully central, what we've tried to do is build a central model which allows us to scale internationally with language skills and with cultural understanding of the markets via a central centre of excellence that's effectively based in London. But we do know that from whichever Gartner or Forrester study that you look at, that there are a certain set of markets that are that are moving much faster in terms of their digital maturity and their evolution of digital, especially thinking about countries like China, France and Germany. We've realized that actually in those markets, having a really strong base of digital excellence ran from the UK, ran from London effectively, is really powerful. What we found is actually in those markets we need to overlay a element of local acceleration, because the base only provides so much differential in the market. So that's kind of external studies that we've looked at to pick which market. But the other thing that we've spent a huge amount of time on is that we've spent a lot of time with Google AdWords data and Baidu data, and we've built a data science function within RS that allows us to do a quantified study of where should we put these local acceleration teams and where should be just what we call single channel markets, where we're running the skeleton from the UK. And rather than think of it as a centralized model, we think of it as a centrally run local model for the globe that's run out of London with local skills. But what we're doing is we're using the data from things like AdWords and Baidu and working with Google to say where do we need to overlay acceleration locally. And what we do is we have about 5 million keywords in each of our accounts in each of our markets, and what we do is work with the data to say where are we not progressing fast enough in click share. So where have we got low click share but a huge market volume to go after? So so what we do is we index against our UK market, which is our home market, where we know we have the strongest click share and market share, and we've built an algorithmic model that says which are the handful of markets where we see the biggest opportunity, because we have low click share and we have huge volume to go after. And they're the markets where we have picked 5 markets around the world where we've said to scale internationally there's a base and skeleton that we have to build, which has got local language and cultural understanding, in terms of what we term that as silver status. So we give silver status to the world through the central model, and we've picked 5 markets where we overlay a gold standard of local acceleration, and there's certain skills and capabilities that we will put into the market that are closer to the customer, that can join conversations that are happening with the customer and can apply a much more local nuance to the activity that's going on in the centre. So I hope that makes sense. And just an example, the way we've done that is we've picked certain skill sets like social media, email, digital advertising. When I say digital advertising, I mean pay-per-click, PLAs, display, programmatic display, and paid social. We sit those things in the market around an agile cell that sits within China, sits within France, sits within Germany, that really allows them to go on top of the silver base and add much more local nuance to the marketing activity that's going on in those markets. The biggest challenge we've had around those things is developing these cells, and when the process of putting these cells in place, still for places like France and Germany, is to get hold of the talent that matches the talent that we've got in the base in London. So I think probably preaching to the converted in here that the talent is the fuel that drives the acceleration. The challenge that we've had is the theoretical model and the quantified analysis that we've done has said that a silver base has accelerated us exceptionally well across the globe, and the model says that when we add a local team, as we did in China, it accelerates much further. So you get an extra 15 points of growth when you put a local agile team in that's got local email, social media, digital advertising capability. Our challenge has been, when you're operating in a base of talent in London and Shanghai, to try and replicate that level of talent to set an agile marketing cell up within the likes of Frankfurt and even Paris. It's been a lot more difficult to try and find and attract the talent within those markets than it has in Shanghai and London. So that's been our biggest derailer. But what we have found is that I think there's 2 things. One is from a inside point of view, our brand is just not as strong as some of the brands operate in those markets. So our value proposition is quite powerful when we talk about what we do, because we make £3 to £5 million a day online. We're a huge global digital business, and there's a lot we've made really broad accountable roles where people can make a real difference when they come in. Um, so the proposition's powerful, but our brand in Paris and Frankfurt just isn't as strong to attract talent in. So we have to do a lot more work to get hold of talent. The other is there's just less talent. So we've kind of got people like Forrester to do some work for us, and their analysis is that the talent pool in Paris and Frankfurt and even Munich and Berlin is just a lot smaller than the talent pool in London. So um, they're clearly very digitally mature countries, but the types of candidates we're getting are either graduates and very, very immature looking to join us or looking to join other companies to get digital experience, or there's a very small pool of highly talented, highly concentrated digital people who understand digital marketing inside out within the market. So the challenge we're finding is twofold, I guess. Just the quality of supply in those markets is smaller, and our competitive edge to get hold of that talent is different. And when you look at the flip side of London, we've worked with a lot of London agencies in the UK, so our digital brand is stronger in London, and also there's a lot more talent to go after in London. Shanghai is obviously the complete opposite, where our brand is weaker, but there's a lot more talent to go after in Shanghai, right? So, and I mean, we were in Shanghai a couple of weeks ago. People are operating there the whole week without. They're operating near enough on a cashless economy because digital is so much more pervasive and mature in China or the main parts of China rather than I think the main cities around Europe. Even though we would like to think. I think so. China's not a problem because I think there's so much talent to go for. I think the local university that we've partnered with are churning out 100,000 digital marketing graduates a year. So, and we went to a city called Foshan where we're looking to move our digital operation into, and they term themselves as a small rural city. They refer to themselves as, and their population's 9 million people, which is bigger than the size of London, right? So, China and London, I think we've got supply. And we can compete in terms of our brand. I think our challenge of the theory around operating these agile marketing cells within market to operate a gold standard of acceleration, our challenge has been in getting hold of talent. And maybe that's going to be relevant to some of you guys, but maybe not some of you guys. So just to be transparent, one of the ways that we're getting over that is to partner with local agencies and use the agency as our local agile cell, rather than hire our own permanent FTs within those markets. Make sense? Any other questions around that before we move on? No. And the last thing I just wanted to end with was, so therefore the conclusion is what we've got to is we have spent a lot of time flipping between local and central. Should it be a fully localized model? We went down that way, and our operating margins took a nosedive. And although we did see a few more extra points of growth, our overall operating margin took a nosedive because it was cost ineffective for the additional growth that you get. We've tried to operate a fully global digitized model running out of London, but what we found is looking at all the data and the ClickShare data is we are not capitalizing on the market opportunity within gold markets. So what we've settled on as a formula currently is operating a silver digital acceleration model ran out of London or a center of excellence for the globe. And what we've started to do is overlay gold digital acceleration teams within our top markets. But one of the things I just wanted to end with was just that there is a tension all the time around local marketing and global marketing, or whether you should be a local business or a global business. One of the marketing campaigns that we've just done recently ran from the UK and was one of the highest grossing marketing campaigns across France, Germany, China and Japan, and it was an entirely English campaign. So I think there's just the balance to be struck between having local presence, but actually there is a role of global efficiency and the power of running global campaigns, even if you take the emotion out of it, on the facts and the data actually sometimes have a much bigger impact than some of the local campaigns. And I just wanted to end with one of the campaigns that we ran, an entirely English campaign, and significantly surpassed anything that we've done locally within those markets in the last probably 3 to 5 years.
Sol is my first child. He was born in 2015 and he's the light of my life. It was a normal healthy pregnancy, but we think that during the forceps delivery that the forceps crushed the artery in his left arm. Sadly, by the time he was taken to a specialist unit in Alderhay, it was too late, so he had to lose the arm. My name's Ben, I'm the CEO and founder of Bionics, and I invented body-powered hydraulics. So I started on my phone from the hospital researching amputation, amputees, prosthetics, and I noticed immediately there was a pattern of rejection in children who didn't receive a prosthetic or a functioning prosthetic early enough, and that just inspired me. And I just remember thinking, that's not going to be my Sol. I started to play around with the idea of prosthetics, sort of basic ones, when Sol was 5 weeks of age, and that's just unheard of. But to Sol, it's perfectly normal. And I know there's not much technology there, but it hadn't been done, and I think that was the turning point. Just allowing him to hit the toys in his crib. And it was actually one night, I think it was 2 in the morning, and I was thinking through that I saw a spider on the roof, and I remember seeing that spiders use hydraulic pressure to actuate their legs. A fluid solution jumped to mind. It was like a eureka moment. I printed these, which are PVA soluble casts. You can see the fluid that I'm going to fill with, which would be polyurethane. So print them in that position, and then there's a cavity inside which is filled with liquid polyurethane, which is very cheap and incredibly strong. And 8 hours later, after you've chucked it in water, you can produce this. The idea being that it'll go under the arm. As Sol squishes it, it'll extend or retract the bellow with a spring on the end of it and just open and close the thumb, which is incredibly simple. But to get to this point where I can make them has been an epic journey. And in January, I met up with Paul Soey, who is an Autodesk product designer, and he showed me how he designs prosthetic sockets. I can now create sockets that fit perfectly. So from receiving a scan now from a child anywhere in the world, I can model a socket in about 20 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on, because every child's different and every shape is different, but I'm getting faster and getting better. I want to keep affordable arms available to families who are perhaps around the world don't have access to a prosthetist. And I didn't realise how in South America it's 13 years and there's just nothing available. And so I would like to be able to set up Bionics in every continent. When I see Sol using his passive, non-functional arm, and I see him using it intuitively, I can just lean down and scratch his leg with it. So I thought, even if this all stops now, I think I've managed to bridge that gap. I wanted to show the world is that this wasn't just something that I'm working on with my son, that I could quite easily help other children. It felt like we hadn't quite hit the right note, but we obviously did with RS, and I'm eternally grateful for the support we've had. Bought a couple of 3D printers. Didn't think filament was be as expensive as it was, particularly some of this, the PVA, for example. It's specialist stuff. The rest is history. I received 15 kilograms of filament, which is enough to do the entire beta trial and most of my prototyping. But to just have somebody look at it and say, that's, that needs a pat on the back, that needs some acknowledgement, that was really, really motivating for me.
Thanks. So just to wrap up, I think going back to the original point that our customer demands, we've concluded, are pretty universal across the globe. And although that's a very English advert with an English gentleman and an English case study, it's been the thing that's got the highest engagement across China, Japan, Australia, France and Germany for us, because I think our conclusion is customers love great content. We're serving engineers who love celebrating great engineers in their industry, irrespective of where the content is coming from. So I think there's a lot to be said to keeping the global leverage and the global reach, but our challenge is we're starting now to add on a gold standard within the market to do things like that have a much stronger local feel. Cool, that's me done. Any questions? Thoughts? Disagreement? Think it's a shit idea? Right. All right, thank you everyone for listening. See you soon.